How's everybody doing? Tinkering with Harleys. I want to thank those of you who have subscribed, and if you watch these videos and you enjoy them, by all means, please subscribe. Now, it's been a while since I put the last video out. I've been really busy around here. And the last video that I did was, I believe, wheel bearings on that Sportster I was working on. Now the Sportster is gone. I finished with it. But I thought I would bring everybody up to date with that one because that one took a long time to do. And it wound up being so much more than what it was supposed to be. Originally, it came in here with hard starting problems, needed tires, and the clutch lever was hard. And that's what we went under the presumption of what was wrong. But as we dug into it, we found more and more wrong with it. Basically because who had ever owned the bike previously tried to customize it and did a really lousy job with everything, and 98% of what I had to fix was the mistakes that were made in trying to customize this bike. But where we started out with and what we transformed the bike into was two different things. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be a little bit different than the normal videos I do. I'm going to put snapshots up of the different things that I did to it. So initially the bike came in here hard starting. It had a stretched aftermarket tank on it. And one of the things, the first thing I noticed was that there was, the enrichener was gone. Or the choke. A lot of people call it a choke, but it's actually an enrichener. And so I was hoping it was still there, so I pulled the tank off, and lo and behold, that's where I found the enrichener or choke. And then from there, things just went downhill. So we got the tank off. And as we got the tank off and we went to put the enrichener in, we found the enrichener underneath the tank, and then we went to set it back underneath onto the motor mount. We found the motor mount had been cut and it actually quit, so we had to replace the motor mount. And also in that process, they had moved the ignition from where it normally is under the neck, and they had moved it in between the motor mount, which in turn with the gas tank that they mounted it with, the petcock that they used, it was the wrong petcock. Instead of getting the right petcock, they cut away the motor mount. So we wound up moving the ignition back to where it was underneath the neck, and put a new motor mount on it, got the enrichener hooked up. And then we started going through things. We found the gas line that was on it was not gas line at all. It was just plastic tubing. So we ripped all of that off and put real gas line on it. While we had the tank and the seat off it, it was a California bike. Now, bear in mind, this bike sat for a very long time, and it sat somewhere on the California coast because there was a lot of rust on it. I removed all the California emissions on it because the bike wasn't running all that great, but there was other issues too. But all the California emissions are now gone off it. The clutch and throttle cables, one of the throttle cables had broken, so we replaced the throttle cables and the clutch cable with new steel braided cables, so that looked real good. Pulled the carb off it and looked in the carb, and there was a lot of crap in there, so we rebuilt the carburetor, put that back on, and then we went to do the tires in the back. And when we went to break the nut off the axle, I could see where the washer that goes right up against the frame was bent. And it was not torqued to specs. It was way over torqued. We got that nut off and then found that the axle had actually rusted to the bearings and actually had to heat the spacers up and knock that out. So we got the axle out and we had to get a new axle. We had to get new spacers. We had to get a new center spacer. Had to replace the wheel bearings, the axle adjusters. We went and got all new everything. Now, one of the things this bike had on it had a lot of cheap chrome covers on everything, which is actually what started most of the problem, because to put some of these covers on, you had to take the axle out and things like that. And whoever did this took and wiped the axle completely clean of grease or anti-seize, and they reinstalled a dry axle. And that's what caused all the problems with the dry axle. And we had trouble getting parts for this because this bike is a 2001 and you can't get the parts from Harley Davidson anymore. So we kind of had to hunt down parts, and things were on back order and we had to special order things. We changed both tires. We added a crash bar, and we couldn't find a crash bar that would bolt onto this bike. So we got one for a Sportster and then fabricated it to fit. And that turned out really, really nice. Got rid of the front foot pegs and installed footboards on it. Removed the brake lever and clutch lever and put some nice new chrome levers on it. We did the brake job on it, all new brakes all the way around. When we got to the front brake, we found that 3 of the pistons were frozen, so we had to rebuild the caliper. We put new mirrors on it, all nice chrome mirrors. We removed the grips that were on there, and unfortunately, the left side grip, whoever put them on with epoxy, so I had to take and cut the original grip off, and then I had to take a grinder and grind all that epoxy off of there, and then buff out the underside of the handlebar because of the new grips that we put on it. The chrome would show through, and these grips that are on there, they look really sharp. I like them. So we had to polish the handlebars. We repaired a short in the signal switch on the right side. So while we were doing all these upgrades with the different things and making the bike, and the person who owns this had no intention of doing any of this, but we were so deep into it and it was taking so long for parts, got rid of that lousy stock Sportster seat and had a custom-made Corbin Gentry seat put on it, which works out and looks great. We added a windshield. We put the windshield on, and that was a Memphis Shade windshield we put on there. Put new saddlebags on it. Bled the brakes because this is one of those years that has .5 where it has to be changed every 2 or 3 years. And we bled the brake system on both front and rear and put in new .5. We also got rid of the stretch fuel tank and got a brand new stock fuel tank. And actually we got that from TC Brothers. Sent that out to paint. And we got that put on, and the bike with the new paint job and a new tank, changed the whole look of the bike. With the new tank, I was able to eliminate that vent line that's on these Sportsters and just put a vented cap on it, and that worked out really good. And all the cheap chrome covers that were on this thing, which caused most of the problem and most of the work, we got rid of all of them. So this is what the bike looks like now. It looked totally different than when it got here. The bike runs great. It's a head turner. Everybody who's seen it loves it. It's got about 2,000 miles on it now since I worked on it, and it's been flawless. It just works great. So I just figured I'd bring everybody up to date as to what we're doing. We've had other things that have come up where I've not been able to do a video. I've got another bike coming in here this week where I got to do brakes on that. And then after that, we're going to be getting back to the Heritage. So hopefully we're going to get on that Heritage pretty quick because I'm kind of anxious to get going. But every time I start to get to it, something else comes up and I can't. So, and as always, if you saw in the pictures, Muggs, who is my constant helper, is always right around when I'm working on the bike. So that's pretty much going to do it for now. Until the next time, everybody, thank you for watching. Everybody be safe out there.